Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, and I'm here with Shari Stauch of Main Street Reads in Summerville, South Carolina, and our author of the week, Scott Boyer, who has a wonderful new series out that we've been learning about all this week. So let's begin with Scott. Tell us a little bit about these books, because you know this is going to go onto YouTube, and there are going to be a lot of people that are going to see this that have not heard of you or heard of your book. So let's hear about your Jade Academy and your newest one that's come out.
Right. So the books are young adult adventure novels, fantasy novels. The impetus, the driving force, and really I think the most interesting thing about the books is while they kind of appear on the surface to be fantasy reads, they're actually designed to be sort of a blend of pure fantasy with what I call spiritual fiction. And as you know, that was actually the latest post that I put up on, in the Breathless Bubbles and Books channel. But it's not about religion. It's not about a belief system. It's about the power within. It's the whole idea was to blur the line between fantasy and reality, to incorporate elements that could actually potentially be real. So it sort of teeters on the metaphysical and the paranormal. Some of the phenomenon, just to give the readers an example, include things like communion with animals and nature, heightened senses of instinct and intuition, clairvoyance. There are certain elements of telepathy or telekinesis, but they're pretty toned down, because at the bottom lines, at the end of the day, it's designed to be sort of a fun, fast-paced adventure novel, a la Harry Potter or Percy Jackson. There's actually been quite a few comparisons made on some of the reviews I've gotten to the Percy Jackson series. Those types of adventure stories, but wrapped in a more spiritual realm along the lines of Life of Pi, Celestine Prophecy, The Alchemist. These are all books that hopefully people might be familiar with, that they have sort of fantastical elements to them, but they're not high fantasy, and they again kind of blur the line between reality and fantasy. So that's essentially what the books are.
What I love about these books is I think they'd be perfect for family home entertainment as we're social distancing, because I'm always looking for great things to share with teens and young people. And I think these are the kind of things that interest them. And I know when I was the age of the characters in this book, that's what I wanted to read. And I'm just a big kid at heart anyway. So they're great family time reads. And so for all of you that are listening to this or will be listening in the future, you need to check them out. And so I had the books right in front of me, but I moved. Do you have them right in front of you?
They're underneath the camera. they're propping up the camera. So there's book one.
Yay!
Here's book two.
There's book two. Okay, I don't know what camera we're on. So there's book two, just in case we're on the other camera.
But Shari Stauch, tell about your involvement with Scott's books, because you own now Main Street Reads, but you've been working with him for some time on this series. And tell about your involvement and why you're going to be giving away one of the drawings for today.
Yeah, so Scott, Bobby Ether and the Jade Academy came out from another publisher, and I actually fought to get the sequel and hopefully an option on the rest of the series, because I think they're going to be huge. And so it's a division of Main Street Reads called Main Street Publishing. And we're super excited. We're taking very few books. I'm working with some absolutely brilliant people and taking very, very few books to do this, but there's certain books that need to be out there in the world. It's like, you've been a book representative, so, agents and editors and booksellers, we're all people that get our hearts broken if that book doesn't get to market, so it was very important that this book get to market. I love Bobby Ether. I love Jinx. I love Lily. I love all the characters in these reads. They're fantastic. And we, of course, as you know, Kathy, we do a lot in the bookstore with Pulpwood Queen Reads. We have a Pulpwood Queens book club chapter here in the store, and we do a lot of Pulpwood Queen book club selections. So I wanted to give away something that celebrates you and Scott and reading in general. So we put together, hang on, I'm going to pull it out. We have a collection of fun books that are Pulpwood
Oh my
Queen
gosh,
Reads.
look at all this, everybody.
Ta-da, 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 ta-da. And then to make it super special, what we're going to do is send you one of our, we give these to any visiting signing author at the bookstore. I know Miss Kathy has one, a Believe in Your Shelf t-shirt.
Fantastic.
The winner will just have to give us the size.
Love
I
it.
have them in a lot of different sizes, so you can get your Believe in Your Shelf t-shirt. And then to honor the Queen, so are you familiar with the company Out of Print?
Yes, I love their stuff.
Okay, so they do masks and they do little fun things. So they have these really squishy, comfy socks. So we have
I love
Queen
socks.
Queen of Books, the Queen of Books.
Oh, those are
Pulpwood Queen.
awesome.
Yeah. So we have all that in the package. So, but you have to enter. You have to enter to win.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, just so we can be, so that's one prize that we're giving away to celebrate Scott in his wonderful series, which your books are included. You're going to autograph those, right? But
I'll send those out from my place, obviously. Kathy, I mean, Shari, you actually showed, I think, a copy of Temple of Eternity, but
Yep.
well, I'll send it out from me, so that they get
Okay.
signed.
Perfect. Okay. Got a book plates.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
wanted to show my support because for those of you who tuned in for Scott's book launch, I had a major technological glitch. I found out in Kansas, internet is not as connected as I thought. In fact, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas are in the dark ages as far as this technology goes. But
Thank
anyway.
God we're not in Kansas anymore.
I know. I had to drive. I learned I had to drive a couple times a day up to my cousin's house to get on the internet. It was not fun. But I wanted to give a copy of my first book, The Pulpwood Queens, Tiara Wearing Book Sharing Guide to Life, because this tells the story of why I promote books like Scott's, of how books save me, and why I'm on a mission to keep promoting all these authors that are mostly first-time first book authors. And then our 20th anniversary edition of the Pulpwood Queens Celebrate 20 Years, which is nearly 70 authors that have contributed to this book on why the Pulpwood Queens, why book clubs, why Girlfriend Weekend, our annual convention, is so important. But I had to go further because I really messed up on that thing. So Scott talks about monks in Tibet, and so I just happen to have 250 copies of Jay Shetty's Think Like a Monk, because it's going to be our February Pulpwood Queen International Book Club selection. I've been a big follower of Jay. He was a former monk, and this is a wonderful book. It went #1 Amazon worldwide. And so I am giving them out to my head queens and to the drawing of my package today, plus a couple other little things like Pulpwood Queen lip gloss and our Breathless Bubbles little bubbles. And last, they'll have 2 shirts to wear to their book club.
All right.
Because we have the Pulpwood Queens t-shirt. And
Hey.
I may even have a Timber Guy shirt around. But we want to support our authors because that's what I do. I mean, this is my mission in life, is to help authors get discovered in a big way. What is it, like 300,000 books come out every year now? I mean, how does anybody...
About every 37 seconds lately.
It's crazy. So, Scott, I think you're off to a really good start. Everybody loved you at Girlfriend Weekend.
Aww.
And is there anything you want to share about your, you've got the 2 books now and the one just came out. So how long is this series going to be? I mean, are you going to keep writing for some time?
That's a good question. In terms of what I want to share, let's start with one and just say that one was really an exploration of my love of storytelling and of what I wanted to read. I think that you've probably interviewed any number of authors who have given you shared this similar kind of comment, but I went looking for the type of book that I wanted to read and I couldn't find it. And at the end of the day, my problem solving mind started looking for, okay, well, if it doesn't exist, what would it actually look like then if it were to be created? And I didn't have a background in writing. So once the story ideas started coming, I had to go and learn how to write it and, take classes, UCLA extension courses, online classes, all that sort of thing. But the truth is that book one is really just sort of an exploration of the world of Bobby Ether, of anima, and of this blending of fantasy and science, of fantasy and spiritual fiction that I was kind of still feeling my way through. And it's very much sort of almost an homage to Harry Potter. And like I said, it's similar to Percy Jackson because it's got that fast-paced tempo. Book two is where I really found my voice as an author, I would say, and where it starts to have its own personality. And that is in the retelling and the reimagining of ancient myths and legends. So in the second book, I basically reimagined the Fountain of Youth, of what it actually was, where it was located, and created a whole story around this. That it's not a retelling of the actual discovery of the Fountain of Youth. It's not it's not that type of thing, but it's a modern day version in which they come across it, and it's different than what everyone has always assumed it was. And not to give that away, but to answer your question about the series, I took that idea of reimagining ancient myths and legends, as well as what I talked about in the second post, the one I put up on Tuesday, about using location as character, using my settings as a major backdrop for the stories, and embarked on searches to create stories that incorporate all those elements. So Shari knows this, she has a copy of it, but book three, which has been written for a while actually, is a reimagining of, well, it involves, I don't want to give too much away, but it involves the Great Sphinx at Giza, in Egypt, which there's a lot of mystery surrounding that. It's a pretty fascinating historical monument, in the sense that there's a lot of evidence to support that it actually predates Egyptian society, including weather patterns that are actually proven to be from rain as opposed to water. And as opposed to wind, and that suggested it's much older. So I started with that as a basic point and said, well, how do I spin a tale around this, and how do I create another fantasy adventure story that dives into the history and the mystique around some of the ancient myths and legends that we all know. So again, I don't want to give anything away, but there's I think it's my favorite story, quite honestly. But it's my favorite story in that it really finds its own legs as a what's the best way to put it? As a unique adventure, as something that no one else is going to have read, or you're not going to have read or anything like it before. So that's where I go with the stories, and then from there we're off on a whole different venue. I apologize, my dog has decided that since I'm talking, he needs attention.
I want to see the dog.
Oh, Pat.
Yay! Look at that.
Daddy,
Oh,
Daddy, I need to be on the camera,
look.
Daddy. He goes, I need to be on camera, Daddy. What are you doing?
That is a sad face there.
Nah, it's just a what's going on face. Nope. In any case, so this series doesn't have a definitive length to it at this point. I am developing several stories. I'm almost done with book 4, and book 5 has been in my mind for quite a while, with the main focus being several fronts. The reimagining of ancient myths and legends, of picking these things that happen throughout history that we all know, and putting a new and unique spin on them, and then having my characters who are modern. I mean, they live in this world, this day and age that we all live in, somehow interacting with that storyline. So I have in book 2, we get introduced to the idea, but in book 3, we really delve into this notion of what I call soul travel, which is these characters get their bodies don't time travel. They don't actually physically go back in time, but their souls go back in time to inhabit that of a person that was a reincarnation of them.
Wow.
That is a compatible vessel, so to speak. And they get to actually interact in that time period through this other person's body. So book 3 involves Bobby going back and occupying the body of someone who was he's the head guard of Julius Caesar during Julius Caesar's time in Egypt, in Alexandria. And meanwhile, so Julius Caesar's there. For anybody who knows history, Cleopatra, shows up at the court, and a bunch of mayhem ensues and stuff like that. So I have Bobby and several of his other characters. They're inhabiting all of these people, these inhabitants of ancient Alexandria, while history is being made. And there's a big adventure surrounding all of that. But it's really fun, and I have a great time with it. And that's book 4, not book 3.
Well, there's nothing more fun for me than time traveling, because I mean, we all have, obviously I'm kind of doing this kind of thing right now where you mentioned Jules Verne when you saw my hat, and a leprechaun, but I'll let that one slip. But anyway, I love any type of movie where you go back to the future, or you go, somewhere in time. I mean, there's been a lot of, and there's not that much out there anymore. Used to be, when I first started the Pulpwood Queens, we read this book called Love's Timeless Hope, where this girl stayed in a bed and breakfast in Jefferson, and while she was taking a bath, she went back 100 years. And she ended up being there in the time of Diamond Bessie. And it was just fabulous, because it told the history of what the town was like then, and we just had a great time with it. I love jumping around because I like history too. And I also, Scott, what I really look for is, people that go, they send me Queen books all the time. They've kind of been done. They've kind of been done. Maybe not Cleopatra in this way, but, I look for the story that hasn't been told before, is told in a unique way. And when I was in the 7th grade, mythology, whether, Greek or Roman, and fairy tales were just like, I still can't get enough of them. So I'm in love with your series, and I'm very excited about it. I'm going to share it with the world. So Shari, you're a smart girl, man. I always knew you were smarty. You've got me beat on the technology, but I'm YouTubing and I'm trying to get myself up to par. So if I had my way, I'd still be on my own manual typewriter, which you can't see behind me, but there's 4 of them.
Oh my goodness.
Sitting back here. But,
so Kathy, it's interesting that you mentioned mythology, because I actually dive into that quite a bit in book 3. In book 2, we have this phenomenon of Bobby interacting with these spirits, right, in the ancient Mayan temple, as I call it, and he's experiencing their backstories. And that part of what happens in the series is that opens the door for him to be susceptible to the past, essentially, to the spirits that are out there that are trying to interact with him. And so in book 3, he ends up being drawn into this past life in Alexandria, which is different than the story in book 4. But I wanted to touch on this because it ends up, and I pull into it, the mythology of the Egyptian culture. So we have Isis and Osiris. We have Amun-Ra, which is, basically 2 in 1, but the god of the sun. And they're reimagined. They are not the traditional Egyptian gods as we know them in Egyptian mythology. At some point, it's the use of just their names without their personas. But the idea was also that the past is shrouded in mystery. I mean, these things that took place happened so long ago that who knows what really happened. And this is essentially the reimagining of, well, if we were to go back there and see what actually happened, what might it have been like? And then you mentioned time travel. I wanted to touch on it. I've been a big science fiction and fantasy guy for a long, long time. And there's a lot of TV shows or movies, obviously, that touch on or that, focus on time travel. There are, and they fall on either end of the spectrum. Ones that take it very seriously and they try to get into the, supposed science of it. And some that are kind of, more campy. So like, I don't know if you recall Sliders, with Jerry O'Connell, the kid who was in Stand By Me. That was on the more goofy side, right?
I think I missed that
but
one.
it is what it is. But the Quantum Leap, the show with Scott Bakula, the science fiction show with Scott Bakula, was probably a more accurate, image and depiction of what I kind of do, because he doesn't actually physically go back and inhabit those the people in the past. He gets put inside them, right? And so every episode, it turns out he's an old woman, or he's a young kid, or he's something totally different than his normal self, and that ends up playing a decided role. So as I move through the series, especially by the time I've gotten to book 4 and book 5, that becomes a major element.
Great. I'm really excited about it. I think kids will be too, because we're all looking for escapism right now, Scott. Get me out of this cabin. Take me away. So I envision, the whole time I'm reading your books, I'm thinking, oh, this would be a great Netflix series. This would be a great movie, I know everybody.
From your lips. I said from your lips straight up. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Well, we got to get through this COVID thing first, because everything's pretty much shut down but animation right now. So we're going to be watching a lot of animated films for a while, a lot of reruns too. So, but yeah, you've definitely got the storyline, and it's going to, I think though, I loved it, but I love lots of youth books that cross over, because I just find the stories are, sex and violence and language, I'm not a big proponent for those elements in any book, so, and I'm not a prude, but I just like ones that you can share with the whole family. So I'm really excited about your books, and I think you're going to do really well. So anything I can do to help you, I am so there. Everybody, I hope you're listening this. So anyway, first, there's 2 questions I want to ask. The first thing is, what were you like as a kid? Because I kind of think I would have hung out with you. What were you like?
Then you would have been the only one.
Oh, stop.
No, truth is, in elementary school especially, I was introverted. I wouldn't say quiet, but I was awkward. I went to a rather unique, I guess the closest description would be a magnet school, but I went to a school that's annexed to UCLA called the University Elementary School. It's now called Corinne A. Seeds University Elementary School. It had a very unique, very different way of doing things. So I think I've mentioned this to Shari before. I went to elementary school with Leonardo DiCaprio. He was in a lot of my classes, and we would sit on rugs as part of, that's how we, our classes were structured. Rather than sit at a desk or anything like that, we sat on this big rug before the chalkboard, and the teachers pretty much taught all of the classes in just that one room. There was 2 rooms per building, and maybe we would go to the other room. And we go back and forth throughout the day, but all of our classes were taught in one of those 2 rooms. And the classes were only 30 kids total. So at any time, there was maybe 15 of us in one room. So, 5th grade, for example, would be just 30, maybe 40 kids. So I knew, we all knew each other really, really well. And unfortunately, and just FYI, so I still vividly recall to this day, Leonardo and his friend Courtney, they would always sit in a corner of the rug, basically as far away from everybody else as they could get without, and still be on the rug. and just they would do like the kind of the hushed whispering things. And of course, as a kid, you always think they're talking about you, and because they would laugh every now and then. And of course, I'm sure they were just talking about themselves. That's as I've grown up, you get that maturity to know that it's not all about you. But it was always kind of like, oh, those kids don't like me, and they're those kids are mean, and all the rest of it. And that kind of seeped into my personality when I was in school. So I made a lot of pointed comments. I made a lot of attempts to be funny that often backfired, and I was the kid who was on the outside. In high school, Kathy, I was a total mathlete. Okay, I took every honors course that my school offered, and I did 3 sports. I did track, basketball, and cross country. And then I was in AP history, AP English, calculus, BC, and yeah, pretty much all of those advanced courses, because I was totally focused on the future. I was like, this high school thing isn't for me.
Smart.
Well, but it also made me very lonely. Lunchtime would come around, and I didn't know who to hang out with. I could go down to the kids on the basketball court, but I couldn't really talk to them. Or I could go to like the math teacher's room and sit there with the with the nerds, but I thought they were super boring. So yeah, no, trust me, it was lonely growing up for me. It's part of probably why I became an author, is because books were, and my older sister was the same way. Books were our friends. Yes. And I read voraciously throughout all of high school, and a good portion of college. Even when I was taking a full course load at Berkeley, I pretty much always had a fantasy novel around. But I had one friend in particular that I used to play basketball with, and he would, this is back in the day when you actually go to libraries. I mean, you'd actually go to bookstores and libraries to get your books. And he'd go to a bookstore, to a Borders or a Barnes and Noble, and he was always looking for a series, right? Forget about one book that you wanted to read. We needed at least 3 or 4. So he'd just look through the shelves and see which authors had a series that he hadn't read yet. And he would then go and buy the 4 books that were all in the series. Maybe he'd buy 1 or 2 to check them out first to make sure they were good, but oftentimes he'd buy them all. And then he'd come to me and be like, all right, Scott, here's books 1 and 2. I'm on book 3, I'm working on book 4 or book 5. So here's the, catch up. Yeah. And we went through, and this is part of what prompted me to write this style of book, is the blending of fantasy with the spiritual fiction I talked about earlier. So I read, Anne McCaffrey, in the Wyvern series, Pierce Anthony, in the Xanth series, Terry Goodkind in the Sword of Truth, Terry Brooks in the Shannara Chronicles. A lot of people go, what about The Hobbit? In J.R.R. Tolkien. Well, I read them, but honestly, those weren't nearly as much of an influence to me as the contemporary books that were really popular in the 90s and in the late 80s. So, but yeah, books for my friends.
You were lucky, Scott, because I had the Little House on the Prairie series, which I loved, but we didn't have those books yet. So I was reading Hans Christian Andersen and Grimm's fairy tales, and the Irish fairy tales and books on mythology, because they didn't have the books. Like you said, there were none really written on what, I love books with dragons, and there wasn't a whole lot out there. So,
and McCaffrey.
Unicorns.
Grimm's fairy tales, Arabian Nights.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. Bobbsey Twins, Nancy Drew, when we were little, that was about it. And then you went straight into adult. Do you remember, my mother had a huge collection, you might remember these, Kathy, of little Colonel books.
I've heard of them. I did not read them, but I have heard of them.
And I never look at them because they look boring, and they all had these rust color covers. I'm like, no, I don't care. I want a Nancy Drew, And one day it was raining and I was out of things to read, and my mother made me read one. She had a huge collection of them that probably gone now and probably worth a fortune, but the little Colonel was the Shirley Temple character.
Yes, I watched a lot of Shirley Temple and Little Rascal.
Yeah, and so they actually ended up being very, very good. But I love what Scott said about, books are our friends, and because most authors and most readers are introverts. I mean, we can be social with each other.
Absolutely. And I'm an introvert too.
Yeah, me too. But the most beautiful thing about that was the thing that completely struck me. And, you know, I write about this in your book, you know, you and everybody, I've told everybody the first year that I went to Pulpwood Queen's Girlfriend Weekend, you had to drag my friends, other authors, J.C. Sasser and Bren McLean, and Patty Well, kind of had to drag me there. I'm like, you know,
oh my God, you guys were awesome.
Oh my God. I said, yeah, you're going to have to drag me. This sort of isn't my thing. And then finally I gave into it. I said, okay, well, if it's going to be my thing, then it's going to be my thing. Well, you walk in the first day and you're in a room with a few hundred people who are just like you, you know, and all the stuff, high school, elementary, all that falls away. You're just in a room full of fellow book geeks. And it is the most amazing experience I can even imagine. And the people that you meet there, you know, it's sort of like a sorority. They become lifelong.
It's your tribe.
Yeah, it really is your tribe.
It is a tribe. And we're all a little bit odd in certain ways. And, you know, I was a kid in school that wore, I swear to God, this is what I wore to school. I had a Sears hot pink velveteen jumper with a Peter Pan blouse, but I wore it with purple knee socks, see-through go-go boots, and a black python beret that had leopard skin on the top. And I wore that with a green.
I didn't know you liked leopard print.
Oh my God. I stole things from my mother's closet to wear to school, which were, you know, pocket purses, hats. I mean, I walked to school and nobody really knew what to think about me. And I was always at recess, instead of playing kickball, I was around the tree trunk playing with troll dolls. And I had created these imaginary worlds with my trolls, and I had my troll doll friends. But what happens at Girlfriend Weekend is all of us that are introverts, and I became an extrovert because I'm so passionate about reading and how it saved me, because the more I read books and the more I read books, the more excited I get about life and sharing them with people, that it was okay that I didn't look like everybody else. You know, it was okay that I didn't have anybody to sit with at school lunches either, Scott. You know, did you ever see the movie Animal House, where they take all the rejects off to the side room and they got the guy with the headgear and the wheelchair? I would have been in that group if I'd gone through a sorority. They would have said, what has she got on? Put her in that side room. And so this is our side room. This is our club. And this is how we all celebrate the stories, because really it's sharing your stories that connect us. I mean, you're way younger than me. I could be your mama. But I understand you because you're coming from that place that I had when I was a child, of trying to fit in, but you want to be yourself, you know? And
yeah. Well, the distinction I make, there's a difference between being an introvert, which is, from what I understand, the definition is where you derive your energy. So some people derive their energy by being around others, and they recharge their batteries, so to speak. You know, I have a friend of mine, he wants to go out, let's go watch the game at a bar. I'm like, I don't want to go to a bar, spend money, you know, drink a bunch of beer I don't need when I can watch the game at home. I have better beer in my fridge that's, you know, half the price, etc. But he charges his battery, he gets his energy from that. Me, I like being in my own space. But there's a distinction between being an introvert and an extrovert versus, you know, being loud or outgoing and being quiet and soft-spoken. And oftentimes the distinction is based upon people who are quiet or soft-spoken because they don't feel comfortable in a certain element. They don't feel comfortable in that room that they can be themselves and not be judged. And this is partially true to my characters in my story. You got characters that, you know, Jinx especially, the core of Jinx's character in book 1 is that he hasn't ever been able to be himself, right? And you might recall the scene, Bobby goes and meets him at the library and says, let's just play some games. You know, and he goes, what are games? You know, what do you mean? He goes, let's play chess. Let's play checkers. You know, they play Battleship, right? And that whole scene is very much almost like my own childhood of allowing him to be himself. And of course, what happens? He comes out of his shell, he's more comfortable, and Bobby and Jinx develop that great friendship. So being in a room, being in an environment that you feel comfortable in, I think is key for all of us. In the label, we can call it whatever we want, that we're book nerds or introverts or whatever the case may be. But when you're in an environment that you feel comfortable, people come out of their shell and they, and you see a whole different side of them. That's why you got those ladies dressed up like aliens coming, showing up to your,
Wasn't that weekend. A great picture? Oh my God!
Absolutely.
I gotta show you guys something. So this is a picture or a print that I have in the front of my bookstore. We have a bunch of them. It's not hard books and stuff, but you'll totally appreciate this one. Can you read it?
I love it. That could be framed and hanging on my wall since 1454. I love that.
Yep, that's us.
That's another T-shirt there. It really is, because we have a lot of choices in life, but it wasn't until I started my book club that I realized that most of the friends that I've made in life had been based upon weird things, not similarities in liking the same things, but more on social mores. And it wasn't until I started my book club that all of a sudden I made friends with people that I was really friends with. I mean, I can't tell you how many times these Pulpwood queens have come to my rescue, and how I would do anything for a lot of these girls. Some of them I haven't even met yet in person, and some of them I've met and I felt like I knew them for years because they were in my book club, or we met on Facebook or whatever. I mean, Shari, how we met, it's just wild. I mean, I just think the world of Shari, and her starting a book club in this climate. Oh my God, I've been sending everybody her way to get the books for our book club because, independent bookstores are so important to a community. They're really the story keepers. So you've got a wonderful person helping you, Scott, and don't ever forget it. And I always tell people,
I'm aware.
Don't forget who brought you to the party. A lot of people forget that. But I'm kind of like John Grisham in that matter. I remember the people who opened their doors to me, like Shari and Jonathan Hote and people across the country said, sure, you can stay with me, and let me get my book club together and let's all have a party, The Pulpwood Queens are really growing. And now with my Pulpwood Queen Film Club, which is really growing, I mean, I think we have over 600 members now on our film club. And it's all because I decided that late at night, I can't read like I used to. I've got old 64-year-old eyes. And even with my readers, they get tired. So when I can't read anymore, I pop a Netflix series on. And then I see these wonderful shows, and most of them are my author's books that have been made into the movies. And I want to talk about it. I want to talk with people. So I started this because of a dream. I started this Pulpwood Queen Film Club, and we're meeting tonight. And a lot of people who are even written a book and wrote a screenplay, it's still writing. Yeah. They go, well, I never thought about writing a book about it. And I go, I bet you should, because they just go together. They make great companions, We want to visually see what we read in books. And then when we see a movie, we go, is that a book? Because I can tell you the book's always better. Yeah. The book's always better. So anyway, Scott, tell us, I want, you had told me a little bit before about going to school with Leonardo, which is bizarre. I have a college professor that I just found out went to high school with one of the biggest Bollywood stars in the world, Madhura Dixit, who I am watching all her films now, and I'm going, what? You went to school with Madhuri? And, but, we're going to be having on the film club another Pulpwood Queen author who was the consultant on the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because he took over Jay Sebring's beauty company, and Jay Sebring was one of the people killed in the Manson murders that was in that movie. So, you know, all these connections, you know, we connect through the stories, and if we lose our stories, we lose our humanity, and that's the truth.
Have
If
you
we
seen,
can't keep
Kathy, have you
connected.
seen the I think it's Netflix series, You, Y-O-U, by
No.
it's from the books by Carolyn Kepnes.
No.
Oh, okay, you have to find it. You. It's
Okay.
a Dexter kind of thing, if you know Dexter.
Yeah, I know who Dexter is.
A little bit of a Dexterish kind of thing, but the guy who's the star of it, who's adorable, he played Woodchuck Todd in the old Easy A movie, hilarious. But he plays the main character. You will completely love it. He's a serial killer, sort of in the making, who runs a bookstore.
Oh my God, I've got to see that.
Oh, it's awesome. It is
A
awesome.
serial killer who runs a bookstore.
Yeah.
So what does he kill? The people who don't buy his books?
Yeah. No, he's got an abundance of love in him, and he's after a girl who he completely adores.
So we're calling it love.
Love obsession, but he believes it's love. And so anybody else who gets in her universe who doesn't treat her right, or who's in front, they got to go. They got to go.
Oh my gosh! And it's on Netflix.
I think so. Yeah.
So guys, as long as we've crossed the stream here, we're talking about movies as well as books.
Yep.
I wanted to just share with you guys something that touches on the last article I wrote about spirituality, and that is, to me, a big part of why I do this, and my guess is it's why you guys are involved in this industry as well, is soul expression, right? Having a purpose, doing something you truly love in
Absolutely.
life. And it's certain that it's not just writing books that are methods that people express themselves. Obviously, movies, music, art, painting, sculpting, all of that sort of thing. It's of utmost importance to me to try and express through in my books this goal of expressing yourself, your soul, whatever that is. I want my characters to do that. I want my own love for writing to come through in my books, for my stories, for them to feel that within me. But the reason I do this is because I feel like this is my purpose. This is what makes me feel good. This is what gets me out of bed and makes me go, I want to do this every day of my life. And I want everybody in this world to find that kind of purpose in their lives. And if it's making a movie, or writing a screenplay, by all means, go for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or opening a bookstore.
There you go.
I'm still sad I don't have my bookstore anymore. I'll never get over that because, I had this hair salon bookstore, and it was so every day I couldn't wait to get there because I never knew who was going to come in the door. And because so many films and things were done in Shreveport and celebrities, you just never knew. One day I had Riders in the Sky, all the guys from, that yodeling group come walking in my door. They were doing a show nearby, and they heard that I had this bookstore, and they had written books about it. And they're still the very first Christmas card I get every year is from Riders in the Sky. So, if you can find that joy like you have, Scott, in doing something that you love so much, and I mean, you have a lot of interests. You've got sports, you've got youth that you work with, you've got your animals. Did you adopt a dog yet?
It's in the process. As a matter of fact, as soon as they get off of here, I need to probably contact the lady and find out whether the dogs are supposedly coming into LA to get vaccinations. And if if it's the last round, I might have it as early as, I don't know, maybe today or tomorrow, but
You're going to
chances are
have
it's
to do a
probably
live
a couple weeks away.
FaceTime so we can see which pup that you picked, because I like them
And
all.
it's not going to be all of them. I'm just letting you know.
I know that,
It's just not.
just taking one of them is so important, because
When are you taking Patch to meet them?
Well, he's the key element. So first of all, you guys saw a bunch of pictures. I just posted whatever pictures I had, because it's important to understand the young lady who has these dogs. She lives on. She and her boyfriend just bought a couple of acres of land outside of LA. They don't have electricity, running water. They just had a water tank that busted, but they just bought the land, and they're basically camping on it right now until they build a home out there. So the communication has been a little spotty, and I'm looking to adopt a female dog, and maybe I can share photos, since I'm guessing anybody who's watching this recording probably is going to go, well, if you're talking about dogs, you got to show me. But the issue is connecting with them and finding. Here we go. Here's one of them.
oh man, that's a cute dog.
That one's gotten a lot of votes, but what I don't know is which one of them is which of them are female, because I don't want a male dog. I'm kind of over the whole lifting your leg to pee every 2 minutes.
They
Alpha.
say what you do, Scott, is you surround yourself and you look to the one that comes to you. They're all adorable.
Yeah, they are.
What if they're all male?
But some of them could be boys. I don't know. There's another one.
Oh.
Any case, so there we go. I will be in communication. We'll find out soon. And it seems like I could probably, if I were to do a Zoom call with the announcement of me declaring which puppy that I was picking, probably get a couple hundred people on here.
Send me the link. I'll be on there because I want to see what you get. I just had my cousin come and pick up a dog, and I just why would you drive all this way for a dog? And then this dog took one look at me, and it was instant love. It just never
Henley, right?
followed me everywhere. Went Henley. Oh my gosh, she's adorable, and I already miss him. And I always thought I was a cat person, but I've had every kind of pet you can have except a snake. I'm not big on snakes.
Listen, the bottom line to me is that you guys heard of the needs pyramid? Have you guys ever heard of that before?
No.
Yep.
So the needs pyramid basically says, at the most basic level, the first thing we all humans need, in order to survive is water, right? Followed by food and shelter. And as you take care of each need, you move up to the next level, right? So you go from, once you've got water, then you're looking for food. And once you got food, you're looking for shelter. Once you have shelter, you start to reach into these higher regions. And it's only when you get to the very top, when all of your basic needs and your survival are taken care of, that you get into these elements, these realms that we're talking about, where you can go, what fulfills me? What makes me happy? What is my soul expression? And one of the things I love to ask people, and quite honestly, I'd love to hear from you guys, but if money weren't an object, if you could do anything you wanted with your life, what would you do? And so some people, they're drawn to animals, and they want to work with animals, and they love to be around animals. There's a certain soul expression that we all derive, I think, most people, I should say, derive from the innocence of animals, from their purity of personality and character, right? I mean, they just are who they are. There's no deceit. There's no maliciousness. An animal that loves you unconditionally. And then, of course, all the other things we talked about, writing books, being a bookstore owner, writing, making movies, whatever the case may be. These are all at sort of the top of that pyramid, in terms of, you have the ability to step back from your life and go, what do I truly want to do? What does my ideal life look like? And to me, that involves having a puppy.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that hierarchy of needs is actually, those are things that's what gave birth to the Renaissance, because people, most of their food and water and shelter needs were being met, so it gave birth to a lot of art. You've seen in the last, especially in the 90s, when there was the explosion of New Age titles, and Celestine Prophecy and Way of the peaceful warrior and everything.
Uh-huh.
Because again, once you have time and those other needs are being met, that's when you start going deeper inside, and exploring those spiritual aspects.
That's right.
It's completely fascinating.
And those Dan Millman books, I left them off of the list when I mentioned it earlier, but the Dan Millman books, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, Journey of the Peaceful Warrior, I read them and I absolutely love them. And you're absolutely right. It's funny, one of them, the first book takes place at some part in Berkeley, where I went to college. But it's a journey inward.
Yep.
In the second book, that if I remember correctly takes place in Hawaii, is a journey outward and inward. They both really are, but that journey inwards is really, I think, what we've been talking about all along. And that's exactly what my characters are doing, is they go through these steps and they figure out, who they are, and they figure out what they're trying to accomplish in this world and trying to make a difference in a very Indiana Jones adventure kind of way.
Right. Well, somebody, asked me, if you didn't worry about the money, what would you do? And I go, I do exactly what I'm doing right now, because believe me, the money's not there yet. But I'm doing exactly what I love. I have everything I need. And, but as far as, I've kind of had a lot of my dreams come true. I'm going to be quite frank. I've had a lot of sadness and tragedy too, but I've had, getting my art degree was a big thing. But if I could do one thing that I have not done, well, actually it's two things. One I'm too old for is I would like to be a professional roller skater, because when I was younger, I roller skated all the time, back and forth to work. Went to the skating rink 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, I love, kind of like you in playing pool. I like to roller skate, but if I could, do any one thing now that, I have not been able to do, I really think it would have to be involved with film, because, I see these stories that I read so much played out in my mind. That's kind of, and I think, shoot, there's a lot of filmmakers. I just saw David Attenborough last night on TV for his documentary. He's 94. I'm only 64. So, wow. Hey, I've got all those years to figure out. Get to it. Why not? In Texas, if you're over 60, when you turn 65, you can go to college free. So if you go to a state institution, so I'm thinking, maybe I want to do that, because maybe I could take these
with Matthew McConaughey. Isn't he teaching down there, Phil?
Yep, he's teaching down at UT. That's a little far for me, but
but you get to see Matthew McConaughey though. Yeah, I mean, that's a win.
He's a Long Beach guy. Yep. Anyway, we'll see. I'm this little filmmaker that's coming on the show tonight. I told her, she goes, well, I want to learn how to do Alcohol Inc. She has a degree in film from UT Tyler. So you just never know. You just never know what the Pulpwood Queen might do. I think, yeah.
One of the things I wanted to jump in here and mention, and I really, at this point, I think talking to, the audience or whoever, might be watching this video down the line in the future, is the issue of empowerment. Right? A big part of what allowed me to explore all of my passions in life, whether it was coaching basketball, because I coached, varsity high school basketball for a while, or writing, or really anything else in my life, is the fact that throughout my life, I've been given the opportunities to explore my passions. And my parents especially, I want to give a shout out to both of them. I love my parents beyond words, beyond measure. They have always supported me to go and pursue my passions, and empowered me to go and do that, and say, hey, if you want to go and spend some time, in living in Thailand and working with kids, who've been impacted by the tsunami, go for it. We'll support you. It might be, they didn't support me financially. I was a grown man. I took care of that on my own, but they supported me emotionally. They were able to
very important
and encourage me to do that. And when it came to writing, one of the first things my mom did was have a family dinner and say, okay, everybody, let's get together and just talk about it. I only written maybe 40, 50 pages, but said, let's just talk about Scott's books and what we can do to encourage and support him. Those types of things, regardless of the subject, regardless of the level, the area of interest, I think are so important to our youth, but also to all of us as adults. To be, and I think, in all honesty, Kathy, that's part of what your Pulpwood Queen organization and your Girlfriend Weekends do. It encourages and it empowers people who maybe they have an idea for a story, but they've never written before. And they come there and they hear the stories of all of these people who were not authors before, before they wrote this one book. And they go, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it.
Sure.
They connect with people with similar interests and they feel empowered to pursue those passions. So for anybody who's listening, who's maybe an aspiring author, who has a story, or just anything in general, art, film, etc., to me, that's what life is about, is go after it, so that when you're down the road, you're looking back on your life, you go, I went for it. I pursued those things that I felt in my soul were important to me.
Oh, that is really important. Thank you for sharing that. It's very important. Thank you. Shari, what about you? Have you always been encouraged?
I haven't worked a day in my life. It's true. It's what my dad and I used to say. If you find something you love to do, you never work a day in your life. So yeah, whether it was, and I came to publishing completely sideways. I was a pre-med major and then decided I would rather play pool for a living for a while because Daddy owned a pool hall, and ended up working, not only playing, but promoting the women's tour. So all those women you see playing pool on ESPN and all that, we did all that. Totally fun. And then the family, my father and I started a magazine, Pool and Billiard magazine, that became just a complete, it started out as just a project of love, and then The Color of Money was being made, and we ended up as consultants on the film.
Oh, that's awesome.
Turned our tiny little newsletter magazine into $1 million publication inside of a year. So that was huge for the sport. And then I played on the Women's Pro Tour for about 20 years before I retired in 2004. And in the meantime, had been approached myself by a book publisher to write a book, how to play pool.
Yeah.
And a book that became Precision Pool. And then they came back to us for another one, Pool Player's Edge. And my coach and I wrote those books together. And in that, I learned a lot more about book publishing. And being that I was in sports promotion and book publishing, I got to see individual sports playing pool is very much like being an author. I learned a lot about the promotion of that, because whether you're an individual and not an individual athlete, as opposed to a football player where the teams are doing a lot of that promotional work for you, but as an individual athlete, just like an author, how do you shout, "Look at me," without shouting, "Look at me"? Yeah, they have very, very similar challenges. And so I started seeing a lot of authors kind of just shooting themselves in the foot, promotionally speaking, not able to reach out to book clubs, or, either doing the buy my book, everybody else's book sucks kind of thing. Not in this climate, you don't do that, but a lot of folks were doing that, or just getting raked over the coals, paying somebody $500 to $1,000 a month to run their websites, that kind of thing, and went, you know what, this is something that I know and that I can help with.
Good.
So that's when we founded Where Writers Win. So I brought in various folks to do website aspects, to do, Bren McLean was doing media training for our authors, teaching them to speak at events or to do readings without going. And then the boy went to the, that's not gonna sell many books, right? And just teaching them to get out there and make connections, because if you realize, again, as an artist, like Scott said before, whether it's dance or painting, or all art is expressive communication. So if you're not communicating, you're not getting there. And if you think about that when you're promoting your work as an author, that, look, I'm just having a conversation. This isn't about me. I'm just having a conversation. People want to connect with that. They need to connect with that. And that becomes huge. And then out of that, I had these magazine offices. We still own the magazine, but I didn't need the offices anymore. Everything in the magazine business is jobbed out. And I had this beautiful suite of offices right on this downtown square. And I said, you know what? Told my dad, I said, why don't I just turn this into a bookstore? And he said, yeah, go for it. so we did. So again, it's another fun place for authors to come when they're on tour, maybe in the next century now.
I hope I get there.
Yeah,
I still got to get out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I
But
still got to get out there, Shari. This
it's a
crazy
great-
COVID thing, man.
Yeah, you do. It's just a great place for community, and there's not a lot of that community at the moment, but small groups are gathering. You know, we gather small groups, and those who aren't comfortable coming out yet, they can join us via Zoom. So the writers group has gotten back together, and we get 7 or 8 folks, you know, a few come in live, a few join via Zoom. And again, if you're just promoting that conversation and that community, it's not work. It's fun. It's fun.
It is fun.
I
I
love
look forward to that. Today is my favorite day.
Yeah,
I'm doing 2 of these.
yeah.
Awesome. So thank you, Shari, so much. And Scott, thank you. You're so young to already have so much figured out. I wish I had been you know, to know everything that you've known. But you have supportive parents, and you went to some incredible schooling. And I'm just tickled that you've got it figured out. I think you're going to go far. So.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure, and the blessings belong to those around me who have enabled me over the years. I should say the thank you and the praise belongs to them. The people around me I've had an amazing support network my entire life, and that extends to the 2 of you, by the way.
Well, you can thank Shari for that, because
I'm thanking both of you. I have gifts that'll be coming to both of you here fairly soon. I have to
you've
order
already
them.
given me so much. I mean,
you can say that, but that's not how the reality. It's not how it works in my world. I like to thank the people who, you know, that I care for, and that you know, make a difference in my life. So as long as we're doing this, I will tell you, both of you guys, you know, and Shari and I have had more conversations about this, you know, Kathy, than you and I have, but we all know that getting in this business and being a part of this industry is tough. It's incredibly competitive. You guys were going over the numbers a while ago.
What'd you say?
It takes a village.
It does take a village. And if we all can't work and play together, then it makes a pretty boring and dull life. That's all I've got to say. So I just can't wait till I can get out there again to see y'all, because I was supposed to go out to California. My trip got canceled. It's a long story. Too many things went wrong, and so I postponed it till, you know, this COVID thing's over. So come here.
The good news, Kathy, I talked to the house. It has no plans to go anywhere.
Okay. So well, my cat was joining me. I was going to show you my little kitty. Come here, Bunny. Oh, he's just being a little toot. He's just like, I know you're going to stick me up on the camera, but Rush was taking a long nap and just came in and go, who are you talking to? You're not talking to me. Yeah. So yeah, I know how it goes with animals. So, and I know Shari has some beautiful animals because I've been to her house. So we are all just here in a big love fest. It's a big Pulpwood Queen Main Street Reads love fest. So Scott, do we want to talk about the drawings, or what are we going to do?
Yes. I think we're probably pretty close here to the end of the conversation, right? I did want to real quickly touch on that last point about, you know, like where I'm at in this stage in the writing process. And again, just kind of speaking to an audience of whoever reads this in the future. For me, one of the most difficult things in writing these books, not in actually writing them, but in getting them out into the world, was finding people who actually engage with me in the stories, in you know, in the book, with the books themselves. And there are a lot of people I've heard, you know, anecdotally speaking, who their publisher, you know, doesn't particularly care or promote or work with them. They're a work product. You know, it's whatever. We edit it and then we market it and it's done, and it is what it is. To me, the biggest blessing that I've had thus far is the engagement by people who truly care about my stories. First, and I just have to share this, the very first person was my older sister, Michelle, who passed away, but she was my biggest fan, my first editor, and she knew my stories better than me. I mean, if I might forget the color of somebody's hair or what had happened in a certain scene, or, where I'm thinking I was going. And she would be like, oh no, you said that character was going to do this. And, now you wrote the scene totally different. Did you change your mind? I didn't change my mind. I just forgot. And so her level of engagement was insane. I mean, and it was just such a godsend. It was such a blessing. And with Shari, I also have somebody who, she and I connected, and we got into this partnership because, as you heard her say, she actually really likes the story, or the stories and where the series goes. And I can't encourage other authors enough. If you don't have that kind of support group, those beta readers, etc., keep searching. But at the end of the day, having those people in your corner, who are there to help you and who really truly believe in your story, it makes all the difference. It really does.
All the difference. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's great. Well, you got the Pulpwood Queens on board. I mean, we're all excited for you.
And what a blessing that is. I can't thank you enough. I mean, I mentioned to you before, but I don't know if it was on it wasn't on this call or on camera. The girlfriend weekend, that experience was absolutely amazing. And yeah, it was like finding my tribe. It was coming to, people said, Scott, you're going to be in a room full of all women. You're going to be like the only guy.
Smart man.
Is this really your type of person and this type of group? And I said, as soon as I walked in there, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's kind of like Y Camp meets, meets I don't know, a room full of books. I felt at home. It was perfect. So.
I don't know any guy who comes to Girlfriend Weekend who doesn't love it, because why wouldn't they? They're worshiped by everybody, every woman in the room. So we were thrilled. And Shari will be back for 2022 doing a panel. So I'm waiting to hear who Shari's going to bring on board to the panel. So hopefully, Scott, you'll have that book and you'll be there. And we do have to. Where I'm having it is not even going to be opening up for even consideration to have bookings until spring of 2021. Yeah. So, I'm holding off on that. So I'm waiting. I've just told everybody that I'm moving it to the East Coast, and I'm excited about it because two of my biggest supporters out there are Jonathan Hote and Shari Stauch and Char Lane, who runs my Beaufort chapter, and all my Charleston girls who, I've got big support, and it's time. And New York's very excited about me moving it there because it's a lot easier to get authors in and out. And it's time. It'll be 20.
So there'll be no event in 2021 next year.
What I'm going to do is, because I'm going to do as soon as I announce my books in December 1st, I'm going to have contact all the authors, and I'm going to have a Zoom-a-thon Girlfriend Weekend. So I'm on the hour. I'm going to be featuring, Pulpwood Queens. And either Shari, you can do a panel, or we can do authors individually, but we're going to do like 3 or 4 days. So we spread it out so there's enough room for people to have breaks. But I want to do that because I think it keeps us connected. So I'll be setting that up starting as soon as I get my list done. It's pretty much done. I'm just waiting on the publication dates for a few books. A lot of people aren't going to have new books out until 2022, and that's when we reconvene, so that'll be perfect. But, I don't know if you've seen the list who's already confirmed coming, but we have it's going to be big. Big list. I just spoke to Adriana Trigiani, and she's coming. So she's been wanting to come for years, and I had her on the Pulpwood Queen Academy. And then Revis is bringing in his buddies. So we're going to be having John Gilstrap and Jeffrey Devers coming aboard to do something with Revis. And
I love Deaver.
It's going to be awesome.
Peter gave a talk up at Duke one year that I was up at, and he got a question from the audience. It's still one of my all-time favorites. I tell every author I work with. So Scott's probably heard the story. Somebody asked him, but just tell us what it's like to be, a big time author. And completely straight faced, Deaver says, it's like having homework every day for the rest of your life.
Oh.
It was great.
Yeah, I know.
He used to shop at where I used to go to get my Nancy Drew books every Saturday morning for 99 cents after I got my dollar allowance on Friday. He and his sister shopped at that same little store. We're from the same neck of the woods up in Glen Ellen, Illinois, outside Chicago. So yeah. And his sister actually writes children's books.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, it will be a party because after 1 year of not having it, everybody goes, oh my God, I can't believe we're not having it. And I said, you guys, that just, sometimes things have to be taken away from us in order for us to appreciate.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the Pulpwood Queens that have been with me since the get-go, they kind of take it for granted. I mean, when I think of Fannie Flagg and Pat Conroy and Alice Hoffman and John Barrett and all these authors I brought in, they're like, It's like even my own daughter, when she was a little girl, goes, oh, Good Morning America's coming. Mom, I'll catch him next time. I'm going to sleep in. I go, you're going to sleep in. And she goes, yeah, we'll just catch him next time. And, no, you have to jump at these chances to all be together because we never know. Look at Tawana, my executive director, who I thought would always be at my side. She's gone, and as so are a lot of my friends. And I've lost a lot of friends and had a lot of friends sick from COVID, even though they say a very small percentage of the country actually got it. I know at least 10 people, and some of them didn't make it. So, we need to all do all the things that we want to do. Yep. Because just be safe and be careful and use your noggin, But thank you, Scott. This is so much fun. Yeah. I feel like of all my authors this year, I've done more things with Scott. He's our very first Breathless Bubbles and Books interview author. And we're going to be doing this from now on. So he's our very first one. And I'm so happy that you and your mom spent some time talking to me at the end of Girlfriend Weekend. I'm so busy running it that oftentimes I miss out on even hearing some of the author's stories. So this is like, I just live for this. Every Thursday night, we do our Pulpwood Queen Academy. We're doing the Breathless Bubbles and Books now. We're doing the film club. And then I get on and watch a couple other ones that if I can squeeze them in, I try to do those too. So thank you, Scott. Is there anything you want to share with everybody before we go off and I put this up on our YouTube channel that is important to you that you want to share?
Well, we got to get to the raffle prizes, right? Do the raffle giveaways, but
we got winners.
No, I guess the main thing I want to share is something I kind of touched on before, but I'll just put it a little more succinctly, hopefully this time. I got into the business that I earn a living as an insurance agent, 20 some odd years ago, straight out of college, 1997. And I've worked in that business for 20 some odd years. It wasn't until I was in my mid-30s that I discovered I had a passion for writing, for storytelling, and I had these characters and these stories that wanted to be created. My main message to everybody, it's not about my books, it's not about anything in particular. It's about pursue your passions. Whatever you really have a joy for in life, do it, and be thankful, count your blessings, and just go for it. Because to me, that's what life is about, is pursuing our passions. So I have a list of all the people that had participated over the week on all of the posts. And I think we were going to pick a couple people here, right? We wanted to pick from the readers. And we have, let's see, Beth Schneider. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Honia?
Honia, yes, yes. She's
Honia,
the Pulpwood
right?
Queen from Carthage, near Carthage, Texas. Yeah.
I think she definitely she's one of our winners. I think she's one of the people
All
who
right.
gets a package.
You want me
And
to
then,
send her my Pulpwood Queen packet?
well, hold on a second. Let's see. The second person that I see on this list who posted quite a bit and was engaged throughout the week is Lisa Hodgson.
She is a Pulpwood Queen who runs my Virginia chapter in Bristol, Virginia. So yay!
Okay, well, so there we go.
Lisa. So you
So
decide who gets which. It's
well, I would ask them if I could, but since they're not on the call, I would just say you probably have a better sense as to which of them might want, your stuff versus Shari stuff, or whether they already have some of the Pulpwood Queen attire and and all the rest of it. Otherwise,
I think either one of them would be thrilled with either one of the gifts. They can always share it with other book club members if they've already got it. So you just pick which one.
So you'll do for Beth, and we'll do Lisa.
Well, I have Beth's address, so I will get that taken care of. Yay!
There you go.
Yeah.
And I'll get you Lisa's too, Shari.
All right.
Right.
Shari and Scott, because you're going to be mailing the books and you're going to be mailing books. Okay.
Yeah.
We will I'll get both of those for you because I've got them somewhere. So
Fantastic.
I'll get them back to you. Congratulations to our winners. And see,
Yay.
that's why, everybody, if you watch this, you need to participate because you could won all these fabulous prizes. So, thank you, Scott, so much for doing this.
My pleasure.
And we'll be talking soon because we want to do the Feather Your Nest up at Arrowhead.
Arrowhead, absolutely. Looking forward to that.
We'll get that going too. So we want
looking forward to that.
More about your writing. Shari, I will try to figure out that Facebook thing.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. We can always get on the phone together and work through it at some point.
Let me see if I can get on YouTube and figure that out, and then we'll get back with you. Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, guys.
All right. Thank you so much. Adios. Until next time.
Yeah.
It's all about
Bye,
the
guys.
story. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, it's going to go. There we go. End meeting.